7-star Hisuian Decidueye arrives in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet in just one day with its mightiest mark and its grass Terra type. And while we've talked about several builds that you can use to take on Hisuian Decidueye, we haven't actually taken a moment to stop and look at what Decidueye brings to the table for this raid. So today, let's take a look at everything. Hisuian Decidueye's base stats, what moves it learns, what it's weak to, what it's super effective against, and most importantly, what you can do to prepare for this raid. So with that, let's take a look at everything you need to know about 7-star Hisuian Decidueye. Let's get to it. And there he is, ladies and gentlemen, Hisuian Decidueye in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And I will say that the model for this one looks absolutely fantastic in this game. They did a great job on this one. So let's break this down so you know exactly what to expect in the upcoming 7-star raid. Starting with Hisuian Decidueye's types. Now, Hisuian Decidueye is normally grass and fighting type, but during the upcoming raid, it's going to be a straight grass type Pokemon because of that grass Terra type. That means all of its weaknesses that it has because of its fighting type on its base typing, it's going to lose those. However, it is still going to be weak to bug, fire, flying, ice, and poison type moves. So a good starting point if you're looking for a build here is to look for Pokemon that have those type moves that are going to be super effective against Hisuian Decidueye. Now, as far as stats go, at level 100, Hisuian Decidueye has some pretty decent stats. But if we break this down a little bit and look at them a little more closely, this can give us some really good hints as to what type of builds we want to take in to face Hisuian Decidueye. Starting off with its HP stat, Hisuian Decidueye's HP at level 100 is 317. And since we know that there is a multiplier in effect for 7-star raids, we know that this one's not going to go by very quickly because 317 is honestly a pretty decent HP stat. Also, looking at Hisuian Decidueye's physical versus special attack, we can see that its physical attack is 260 and its special attack is 226. Meaning that it is much more likely to be a physical attacker than it is a special attacker. However, there is that odd chance that they throw in that one special attacking move for Hisuian Decidueye to use. But I think at this point, it's safe to say that Hisuian Decidueye is probably going to use more physical moves than it does special moves. Which just means that if we're going to invest in our defense for any builds that we make, we're definitely going to want to invest more physical defense than we do special defense on this one. Now, Hisuian Decidueye's defense stats tell a completely different story. Its physical defense at level 100 is 196, while its special defense is 226, which means that if we're going to build something to take on Hisuian Decidueye, we want to focus more on physical attacks than we do special attacks, as our physical attacks are going to do more damage because of that lower physical defense stat. Now, Hisuian Decidueye's speed stat is a different story because at level 100 it is 156, which is not really fast, but it's not the slowest thing ever. So if we want to be able to outspeed Hisuian Decidueye and be able to use like Shell Bell or Drain Punch or something like that, we're going to have to make sure that whatever build we're making has a higher speed stat than 156. But if it has a speed boosting nature, it will put that up to like 171. So I'd say if you have anything that's above 175, you're definitely going to outspeed Hisuian Decidueye. Hisuian Decidueye has access to 2 different abilities, and we know which one it's going to have because 7 stars always have the hidden ability of that Pokemon. In this case, that is Scrappy. And Scrappy is kind of an issue here because that ability allows the attacking Pokemon to hit Ghost-type Pokemon with Fighting-type moves. Which, if you're bringing in something like Annihilate, could be a slight problem. It's just one more thing that we have to watch out for when we're considering what builds to take in. Movesets for 7-star raids are notoriously difficult for us to guess, because there's just so much variation and so many moves that different Pokemon can learn. However, we do know that Hisuian Decidueye will be running triple arrows because that is his signature move. And if you don't know, triple arrows is a 90 base power, 100% accurate move that not only has a heightened chance of landing critical hits, but can also lower your defense by 1 stage and has the possibility of flinching. So this one is definitely one to watch out for, especially considering that with Scrappy, it can still hit Pokemon like Annihilate and Ceruledge. Now, there are some other moves that Hisuian Decidueye is very likely to have, the first of which being Brave Bird. Brave Bird being a 120 base power attack, 100% accurate move that does quite a lot of damage to the user as well. We've seen Pokemon in 7-star raids use moves that damage the actual raid Pokemon, and this one is pretty much guaranteed to be in Decidueye's move pool. I would also expect to see Hisuian Decidueye running Leaf Blade, as it is a 90 base power attack that has a heightened chance of landing critical hits. This one could honestly be pretty devastating to some builds going into this raid. For stat boosting moves, I would 100% expect to see Hisuian Decidueye running Bulk Up, just because it's going to raise both its physical attack and physical defense, its strongest stat and its weakest stat at the same time, and it'll probably spam this much in the same way that Mewtwo spammed Calm Mind. And just to give it some more coverage, I could definitely see them giving Hisuian Decidueye a move like Smackdown, which is a rock-type move that would be able to do some devastating damage to Pokemon that would normally have really good coverage against Hisuian Decidueye. But I could definitely see them giving this as a moveset to Hisuian Decidueye to make this raid quite difficult, actually. With Triple Arrows, Brave Bird, Leaf Blade, Bulk Up, the addition of Smackdown, and probably a couple other moves in there as well just to cover some of its weaknesses, could make this raid honestly pretty difficult. But again, it's hard to know until the raid actually starts. This, however, does give us a good idea of what moves Decidueye is likely to have, and allows us to build around this to help avoid taking the maximum amount of damage that we could take here. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's everything that you need to know about Hisuian Decidueye to get yourself ready for this raid and prep your own builds. For those of you that are new here, this is kind of the process I go through when I'm looking at the next 7-star raid, is I get the Pokemon in-game and I look at what its stats are. I look at what possible movesets it has, and then I do damage calculations to figure out what builds will actually work against this. Does it always work? Absolutely not. Does it work more times than not? Of course it does. But that's everything you need to know about Hisuian Decidueye. Typing, stats, and what moves it could possibly have for this one. So I want you guys to let me know down in the comments below. What do you think about Hisuian Decidueye, and how difficult do you think this raid is actually going to be? And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.